Ladies and gentlemen, we now move on to our next fireside chat session on 5G rollout. We have with us Ashwini Khilan, COO and CTO, APAC American Tower Corporation, in conversation with Dinesh Chand Sharma, Director, European Projects on Standards. Ashwini Khilan brings over 25 years of telecom leadership experience with a consistent track record of driving increased levels of productivity, profits, and customer engagement. He is recognized as an operations and network expert in the industry, especially in the areas of designing and implementing solutions to reduce total cost of operations and delivering a strong ROI. Mr. Sharma is the Director, Standardization, Policy and Regulation for a European project on standards known as SCSEI, which stands for Seconded European Standardization Expert in India. He brings with him 21 years of experience in ICT and IT field, both in India and abroad. Over to you, Mr. Sharma and Mr. Khilan.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for your brief introduction. It's indeed a real pleasure to be a part of this conference, this session which is dedicated to 5G rollout, and it's only me and Ashwini. We have a long association. We work together in Ericsson, so we come from a long background or a long experience of working in the telecom sectors. But before I start the fire chat session with you, let me briefly touch upon, I think we all know about it. We are talking about rollout. It's no more a time of talking about technologies. But still, technologies plays a dominant role whenever we introduce a new technology. So we all know and understand that 5G is going to be transform the way we talk, we interact, we connect. Everything will be connected. And as we know from a triangle perspective, it's bringing a lot of potential with it. While 4G is already taking care of all the use cases we can think of today, but still we know the way the data is exploding, the way the Internet of Things, machine to machine, are coming up, the way the broadband demand has gone up, the way the latency is going to play a role. We just click a button and we want everything to be downloaded. So 5G is truly bringing a lot of potential with it in terms of those three corners of a triangle. We call it URLLC, ultra reliable low latencies, massive machine type communications, and enhanced mobile broadband. And as I said, it will connect everything, whether it is machine, whether it is object, whether it is consumer. And with massive machine type of communications, there are predictions that today, if we have two devices with us, from the perspective of machine to machine or IoT, these devices will become 10 by 2025. And even this new architecture, which is a network layered architecture, we all know that there are many use cases which are non-ICT sectors, but we are putting them a layer of ICT and we call them smart. The moment you use a terminology called smart city, smart citizen, smart mobility, smart energy, what you're doing is actually you're bringing a non-ICT sector into an ICT domain. And that's why this 5G technology has a lot of potential in itself. But of course, any technology, when it is introduced, it brings its own challenges. And that's what I think we're going to debate and discuss from one of the major infrastructure provider in the country. There is also a kind of open question people does ask, that why all these use cases cannot be fulfilled by 4G? Yes, it does. But look at the potential of explosion in terms of data. So social networking, for example, the kind of data we are generating and accumulating, we call it big data analytics. So while the use cases can be taken care of by the existing 4G technologies, with more spectrum has been auctioned in recent time for 4G as well. So 4G will continue to coexist with 5G. And any new technology, when it comes, it gets introduced in a phased manner. It cannot be rolled out just by the flick of time. And with a technology like 5G, it will take its own time. So for both the technologies will coexist, for a number of years, maybe 5 to 6 years. But yes, the kind of support the government of India has put in place while introducing or while auctioning the spectrum, and on top of it, many more initiatives, ease of doing business, amending the IT Act, all these are just to funnel to ensure that this new technology is rolled out as quick as possible, and the government can start focusing on the next technology from the research and innovation. We call it 6G, but of course, before 6G, 5G beyond will happen. So with that as a brief setting the context, let me come back with my colleague to have some fire chat discussions. First of all, let me begin with asking you a question. Again, existing scenario. We're talking about existing scenario, which is 4G, and a lot of infrastructure has been rolled out. And this infrastructure is not only rolled out in the cities or in urban, but the rural, which is the major part of our country. I mean, 60 to 70% is a rural infrastructure. So rural infrastructure has this connectivity. So, and when we talk about from an Indian context, any technologies, we always talk about affordability, because that is key. And when we see it from a rural, affordability is the most important, which means also the economies of scale. So, and various initiatives, for example, Digital India, 100 Smart Cities mission, we are utilizing this backbone infrastructure. So, in your terminology, looking at the 4G, how has the infrastructure ecosystem have effectively supported the demand as of now, considering the 4G as a technology? So what's your opinion about it? Thank you.
Thank you, Dinesh. I hope I'm audible. So, as you said, so, and in your beginning, you said that, any infrastructure takes time to develop. It's not that, so today the auction has happened and tomorrow, we are kind of 5G ready. And this is, true for anything, but very, very true for infrastructure, because, by nature, infrastructure takes a lot of time to develop and a lot of efforts to develop. And, you also put in the point of the cost, so if we were to, hasten any infrastructure deployment, then, we have to compromise somewhere on the cost also. So if we have to keep all, these three, aspects that you talked about, so then we have to be very, very diligent in, first of all, understanding, that, what the 4G infrastructures we have, and where does the 5G infrastructure need some, intervention or some changes or some new, kind of. So if you kind of, step back and try to look at it, so what are those paradigms which are changing between 4G and 5G, which is, kind of influencing, need for newer or, more innovative or, as you said, more cost-effective infrastructure. So if I look at it, there are two clear, paradigms which are, kind of different between 4G and 5G. One is the spectrum band, so we all know in India, 25 years back, we started with 900, migrated to 1800, migrated to 23, 24, 25, megahertz spectrum. And we all know with each, as the frequency keeps on increasing, the law of physics says that, free space loss increasing. So the spread of the cell keeps on, decreasing and decreasing, so there is so as we move from, let's say 23 to 3300, megahertz, which is the core band of 5G, kind of rollout, the need for densification, as we call, will increase. So this is the first paradigm. The second paradigm is, with all the applications and all the, the enterprise application and the consumer applications that we talked about, and Rashim talked about they anticipate the data volumes may, double or triple. Okay. So for that, you need, the wireless points, the points of presence of wireless network, the wireless radios. More and more radios needs to be closer to the customer to pick up all that capacity. So that's the second paradigm, which are two fundamentals of, defining what kind of infrastructure intervention is needed, when we move from 4G to 5G. But I'm sure we move forward, and as more and more applications, and people in the earlier panel talked about latency, and you also touched on latency. When this latency thing comes up, the third paradigm comes, gets added, which is, the infrastructure needs to be as close to the customers as possible. Okay, so to me, these are the three key, differentiator between a 4G infrastructure and a 5G infrastructure. And the moderator to this, or the influencer to this, is the the equipment, as it changes, kind of shape and form as we move from 4G to 5G, with all the R&D and innovation of all the Nokia's, Ericsson, Samsung's, Huawei's, all these kind of equipment providers, and we are seeing over the years, the form factor, the size, the shape, the weight of the equipment is reducing and reducing. So I still remember the 2G base station, and I was in Ahmedabad, and we had to install it on a 13th floor, and it took us one complete night to take that BTS from down under to 13th floor. Okay, so today you can, it's a backpack of a BTS, you can put it on your back and climb as many. So that is a big influencer in this whole thing. The third thing, which we need to keep in mind is the scale. So are we talking, what kind of scale we are talking about when we are moving from 4G to 5G? The infrastructure intervention. What scale is required? So if with my experience of moving from 900 to 1800 to 2300, as I earlier said, when we move to 3300, and when we have to provide a meaningful 3300 based coverage to the and again coverage coupled with the high capacity. Okay, so my belief is that you may have to add at least 75% more minimum, so if not double. So, let's say you have to take your wireless points of presence from, let's say, 100 to, 1.75 or 175. So that's my, kind of estimates that we have. And, if we look at today, today we will have about 600,000 to 700,000 towers pan-India present, and if I apply my, kind of thumb rule, 1.75, so we would need, another 500,000, kind of points of presence, to make sure that, the 3.3 gigahertz band is not only able to provide the outdoor coverage, but it is able to penetrate at least single wall or double wall, because, the experience has shown that most of the data applications are utilized inside buildings rather than, on the street and all. So, here we are talking about, 500,000 more, point of presence to be added. We added 6 to 7 lakh, towers or, whatever. Okay. So, and I will talk about the, the unique requirements of that infrastructure. So it's not like, the old towers. Okay. But, in terms of numbers, whatever we have done in last 25 years, 25, maybe we started in 1995, 96, so 26, 27 years. So same number of, POPs or, little lower than that needs to be added in next 4 or 5 years. So I think, the scale, the need for densification and all these things, that I, talked about in terms of paradigm shifts, makes it, a big challenge in front of all the, whether it is telcos or, the infrastructure providers. It's a big challenge in front of us. And you talked about digital India and all, so if we were to, fulfill that dream or fulfill that vision, I think that's what the work in front of us is, as we see, so.
Okay, thank you. And I think I concur with you, because one of the report, IMT 2020, published it long back. They says, in case of 5G, 1 million devices per square kilometer against 4G, 60,000. So you're increasing 40,000 devices more in the same coverage area. So you are absolutely right. It got to have a big balance between the capacity and the coverage. The band is capacity, the coverage will be limited. You're right, we started with the coverage-based implementation, and now we're talking about capacity from a mobile broadband perspective. Before I go to my next questions, just a couple of things. Like, for example, I read it in the paper that Reliance Jio wants to roll out first in the major 4 cities, the major metros, and by next year, end of next year, they will have the pan-India coverage. Similarly, DOT has also announced even the number of cities which they are targeting. I think 13 cities they want to roll out. And there is also a claim that even 1,000 cities have been surveyed by Jio. I mean, do you think like it's practically possible to achieve such a scale, talking about the capacity band and the kind of massive infrastructure rollout? Do you think like these are achievable targets when you are putting an overlay network on top of your 4G network? What's your views around it?
So I think, two sides, to your question. One, I think, telecom is one sector, and I have been lucky to be associated with this since, even before, 95, 96, I have been in this sector since 1989. Okay, so whatever challenge has been put to this sector, it has, very gracefully, accepted that challenge and not only delivered it, to the satisfaction of the consumer, but, I always feel pride in seeing, that consumers are more than satisfied, and again, there are, problems in, so quality and all those kind of things, nothing is perfect, but, if you see a macro picture, so I think, whatever challenge, and this is not the first time the challenge has been put to us, so initial rollout of 2G, and then, we were supposed to upgrade everything to 3G, and then 4G came, and, and mind you, we started implementing 3G in 2010. So in last 12 years, from 2010 to 2022 that we are running, so we are upgrading our networks for the third time. So in 2010 we upgraded from 2G to 3G, 3G to 4G, and now we are talking about 5G. So I am quite confident that, whatever challenge is put to this industry or this, set of people, so we have people who are capable, to deliver that. So that's one aspect of your answer. The second is, that, and when we talk about, covering 13 cities or, in 1 year, so there is always a slow, kind of proliferation of any service, So when we say that, we will cover, pan-India in 1 year, so my understanding is that we will have a presence of 5G in pan-India in next, let's say, 1.5 to 2 years. But if you ask me, even today, so we started, rolling out 4G in, let's say, 2014, 15, okay, so 5-6 years. So are we, 100% there? No, still, there are gaps. So this is, like the similar way it will get proliferated. First, we will be I think in a position to touch, the whole country in that sense, in, let's say, 1.5 to 2 years, and then, and again, so it's very difficult to achieve, first 60-70%. Rather, it's very easy to, achieve first 60-70%. The last 20-30% is always difficult to achieve. So I think, that is where I am saying, that it will, overall, if we see, so the whole capex cycle or whole, deployment cycle will be about, maybe 4 to 5 years, or if we, kind of compress it too much, it can be 3 to 4 years, So that's what, our kind of vision is, that to complete this rollout in that sense that, we are able to provide meaningful, services and, those applications that my, colleagues talked about, it may take, that much time.
All right, good, thank you. Related question, the Department of Telecom earlier carried out a study around street furniture, and this report is there. The purpose was they understood this kind of massive rollout when you talk about cell coverage area. So street furniture was targeted as a first step. Based on that report, recently I was reading, the DPPIT, the Department of Promotion and Industry, has released an office memorandum. And they have asked states to carry out mapping exercise. A mapping exercise covering bus stands, covering electric poles, covering street lights, shelters, bus shelters. So they have asked the states to do this mapping exercise. And I've understood that probably Gujarat and UP have almost completed this exercise. So government is proactively working, realizing the need of the industry to have a faster rollout of the technology. So do you think like these steps are the right steps which will help the TSPs and the infrastructure rollout like ATC? Is this enough, or do you need more to achieve the targets which have been emphasized by the Department of Telecom or the telecom operators like Airtel, Vodafone and BSNL and Reliance Jio? So do you think like that?
So, I think, again, if I, kind of little bit go back and, so I kind of continue from where I left in your, when I was trying to answer your first question, so what is needed in this, infrastructure? What is, so I talked about, what are the drivers, what are the influencers, and, what is the scale. So to me, the need is, to increase the number of points of presence. Okay, so that's the, flip side. The good part is that now the point of presence need not be as, massive as it used to be, and I did talk about. So, the requirement is, that those points of presence needs to carry lesser weight, lesser, kind of form factor and all. Those points of presence needs to be fiberized, okay, as much as they can, and the need was emphasized in the earlier panel also, okay, because unless you have fiber connectivity, it will be very difficult. Yes, the E-band will help, but at the end of the day, the wireless will always have a finite capacity. So if you have to pick up as much capacity as, the applications which are, kind of bandwidth hungry, you need to have a fiber backhaul. So that's the second requirement. The third requirement, and, Rashim touched upon, the RAN, de-aggregation, or, so for that you need, lot of these edge data centers, So, and again, what is edge data centers is something, where you can keep your, telecom equipment. It's a fancy name given to, so a place where you keep your telco equipments, which are able to provide 24/7, electricity, the grid electricity, and all those kind of things. So these are the three main, kind of requirements that we need to fulfill. Okay, and if you now try to plot what I have said, so actually what we are saying is that every 200 meters, in a dense urban city, you need a point of presence. Okay, and if you try to draw a similarity, so it is very similar to the street light infrastructure. So I don't know street lights at 100 meters or 50 meters, I never. But it's if I try to foresee in my mind, the closest I can see or I can think of is the street lights. Okay, and that is where I think there is a perfect match between this infrastructure requirement that we have and some of the infrastructure that already present in terms of street furniture or those kind of things. So what is needed on those the point of presence if we see from that perspective is that they should be all fiber connected and they should have a grid connectivity on all those points. So these are the two critical points, and a arrangement where you can kind of hang up. So the street light is very, very light, so our equipment will be much heavier than that, but not as heavy as we used to be. So that is the kind of infrastructure, and unless all the the stakeholders, and the municipal corporations, and to me, if we have to roll out in such a scale and such a way that I have described, the DISCOMs, the distribution, electrical distribution companies have to play a very critical role, and they have to work hand in hand with us, because each of these POPs needs to have a electrical connection also, because otherwise there is we can't light them up. So I think the steps that government is taking, I think they are in the right direction, And the key to success is that, all stakeholders have to get together, put their act together. I know what I have to do. If the DISCOM knows what they have to do, if the municipal corporation is aligned, what they need to be, needs to be done. I think, we have, over last 20, 25 years, we have shown to this country that, if we all work together, we are capable of, pulling this thing together. So that's, how I, kind of, in a larger scheme of things, how I look at the things, fanning out, or how the things will move, so that, in whatever 1.5 to 2 years, we have first target to reach out to all the people, so that, they have something to see on their phones as a 5G coverage, and then to provide a meaningful coverage, in next, another 2 to 3 years.
Thank you very much. We have a time up, but in nutshell, what you're saying is it's a new ecosystem, more stakeholders, availability of V and E band, the fiberization, government mapping exercise will truly help achieving those faster infrastructure rollout in the country, and we could make 5G as a reality. I don't know if we can get some 5-10 minutes more to ask a question. 5 minutes? Okay. So if any questions from our great colleague from an infrastructure rollout point of view, you can ask now. I'm a standards guy, I'm a technology guy. You can ask me from a technology perspective, so we can have 1 or 2 questions, even if the time is up. Anybody has any questions, any clarity needed from what we discussed so far? Yes, please. Mike. Please introduce yourself, and if you have
I'm Biren Singh, I'm Vice President, and I head the NLD ILD network for Sify Technologies Limited. We are NLD and ILD operators, basically, ILDOs. So my question here is pretty simple. People in my society and apartment, they know that I'm from telecom, right? So I told them about the auctions and government expectations of 80,000 crore going to 1.5 lakh crore and things like that. And I said, we have got towers nearby. I got the Jio towers done for you and got Airtel tower, helping people, because I'm from the industry, so I help my society. But when I wrote this about 5G and getting launched in month of October, Diwali time and all, so the next comment, and I mean these would be the comment which has come in the society group. I'm sure all of you should be having a society WhatsApp groups, right? Biren ji, ये बताइए, 3G तो चला नहीं, 4G आ गया, आप बढ़ते तो 4G में गेम चेंज हो जाएगा. 4G तो चलता नहीं है, डेटा स्पीड देखिए मरी हुई है, स्क्रीनशॉट, 4-5 people sending a screenshots. Now 5G, technically we understand all those fibers and things like that, towers have to be connected and other stuff, right? Spectrum, everything is fine, but where is this quality of service? Today, if you look at, earlier, 8-10 years before, we had all this SS7 networks. Today, everything is transported on the IP layer, right? So we have those one domain, let's suppose Jio, going to another domain, which is Airtel. And it's a SBC, Session Border Controllers. Though it has to do. So there are a lot of technical stuff like codec negotiations and blah, blah, blah. I'm sure all of you, when you take a call, every second or third call, maybe fourth call, or maybe I might be saying too much, is one-way voice. Call aa rahi hai, meri awaaz sunai pad rahi hai, because there's an issue with the codec negotiation. So coming back, we need to stress on the quality of service. So my question to you, sir, is that how much of the fiberization of the towers has been done? Because until that thing is there, or connectivity in between the towers is concerned, and of course we are talking about a gigahertz frequencies and other stuff, we have a lot of homework to do, maybe 15, 20 times.
Got your question, sir. Quality of service. You will start? Please start.
So,
I'm sure this is a common problem.
Yeah, so it is a common problem, and so I think any consumer facing industry will always have this problem. Okay, so means, and I'm trying to represent the whole industry, so and I'm a very small part of the industry, but I'm taking this liberty to represent the whole industry, because your question is for the whole industry, not for the infrastructure or anything. But I think we need to look at the whole thing in a perspective. So I think the development that has happened on this side of telecom, and I remember when we were studying in college, I'm from REC Kurukshetra in 1984, from 1984 to 1989, so we used to have a manual exchange in Kurukshetra. So we had to pick up the phone and, the operator will answer the call and ask which number you want. So there was no even a dial pad on this phone of ours. Okay, so, I think we need to look at that perspective, and even in data, so only about, and I said, we started implementing 3G in 2010. In last, 10, 12 years, and with large, country and with so much population, it's a big challenge. But I think, as an industry, we need to work on the quality of service, no denial on this, but we also need to take pride on, what we have been able to achieve, okay? It is very difficult to, satisfy all the consumers, and that's why I said, this problem is for any consumer-facing industry. But, on one side, we need to work on, all the aspects that you talked about, and you are from the industry, ins and outs, I think better than I know. You talked about session border controller and all those things, I will have to, pick up my old books and, try to understand what those means. But at the end of the day, on one side, we need to keep working on improvement of, quality of service. And personally, I may be totally biased, but I have seen in last 3-4 years, the quality of service improving, If it is not up to the mark, it is not 100%, and it is impossible to take it to the 100%, because very nature of wireless industry is such that, you can't, provide coverage to everybody to their satisfaction. And this effort has to continue. But also, parallelly, we need to take pride in, whatever we have been able to achieve, and whatever we have been able to, add to the community, the whole community. The way, this whole digital proliferation has started, the digital payments and all those kind of things. This is all on the back of this infrastructure. I think we need to take pride in this also.
Absolutely. It's like Dil Mange More, voice versus data. Why are we talking about 5G? Because that has the situation which has become a reality today. Expectations have gone up too hugely. With those VoIP call also in existence, with Dil Mange More in terms of data, you click it and you want to download entire file in seconds. It's the expectations. And if you go back a little bit, due to reorganization of this non-ionized radiations and reducing the power of those BTS, the holes were created. It took us so long period of time to fill those gaps, the holes. And today, yes, when the technology is built, it is built with that quality of service. But yes, it's a design, it's a wireless network, so it takes time. Thank you very much, sir. If you have a quick question, please.
Sir,
Gupta ji.
we're out of time.
We are closing it.
Yeah.
But quickly.
Thank you, DC and Ashwini, great learning. But my question is technical question about small cell versus ODAS, what you know, especially in the street furniture domain. So can we use ODAS instead of small cells so that cost is also less and coverage is more?
Sir, of course, why not to try multiple options? Yes. When we have a challenge of small cells rollout, and small cell is a reality in terms of the band availability, which we need a capacity band, why not? Absolutely, to answer your questions. Thank you very much. We close this session. Thank you very much, Mr. Khillan.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. I would just request you to please stay on stage, and may I invite Mr. T.R. Dua, DG DIPA, to please give you our tokens of appreciation for a very interesting and invigorating fireside chat. Mr. Dua, can I have you on stage, please, to present the mementos? Thank you. Thank you so much, gentlemen.